Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 91 of IGEL Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I've got a panel with me of Chris Feeney from IGEL. Chris is the grand poobah of sales engineers at IGEL. Chris, what's your official title these days?
Director of Vertical Solutions, and I'm also the channel pre-sales engineering manager as well.
So you wear two hats.
Yes, and there's a third job that is not in my title regarding some product I seem to know a thing about on Imprivata. So that was more of a let me see who else is willing to take this one on.
Well,
So
it might come into your topic here, but I think one of the things IGEL is doing is you guys are aligning with industries that you see great fits for the IGEL solution from a usability as well as from a security perspective. And with that, I'll introduce Aaron Banner. Aaron Banner is the director of security here at XenTegra. He's our grand poobah on that side, as far as helping ourselves and our customers be more secure and be more prepared for whatever happens, because it's going to happen. Aaron, how's it going?
Hey, good, good. Looking forward to this discussion with IGEL. I really love what IGEL does, love having them in our events, and really like how they contribute to the overall security posture.
Yeah. I love it's like a love fest going on over here. I really, really like the idea that our security chief appreciates the value of a managed secure endpoint, and to that matter, delivering compute to that endpoint versus deploying to a best you can managed Windows device. Don't get me wrong, love Microsoft, love Windows, love what it brings to the equation, how powerful it is. It's also our weakest link. Aaron, the fact that you align with that as a security person at XenTegra, and 90+% of our customers align with that concept too, whether they know it or not. That's the key. Whether they know it or not is just a magical scenario for us and IGEL to have a partnership.
Absolutely.
So let's see. Let me do the commercial. So if you are if you're an IGEL customer, if you're thinking about being an IGEL customer and you want a partner that is truly, truly, truly going to bring value to that equation to help you buy it, implement it, maintain it, manage it long term, then you are at the right place. XenTegra does that. We're very passionate about IGEL solutions. I call it the "it ain't Windows" endpoints. And as again, much as like love, care a lot about Windows. At the end of the day, if the user doesn't need Windows, you shouldn't put it in front of them, because it's only going to cause problems for them as well as your company along the way. And it's going to cost a lot of money if you truly add up the cost of that. So that's our pitch. And part of the way we bring value to that is this podcast and the webinars and all the events we do with IGEL. We do a ton of them. Get excited about IGEL Disrupt. Chris, you can be able to make it to IGEL Disrupt?
yeah, I'm registered. I got to fill out. I'm one of the speakers, so filling out the whole who's who in the zoo kind of thing. But we've got some exciting content coming up here. But yeah, looking forward to it. It's T minus I don't know, 3-4 weeks out. So
And as you say that, I remind myself what I reminded myself of earlier. I don't have my flights booked. I got to get that
I
done.
just bought.
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah, we just had the hotel and everything go out, so I booked all that Sunday, I think it was, or whatever. But
Probably fair to say this is the biggest end user compute event of the year, because IGEL is the aggregator of all the different technologies.
yeah, I mean, it's exciting. And I appreciate what you guys are doing, trying to drive attendance there with the discount passes and everything. The industry vendors have signed up. It's a great location, great time of year. Um, so I think we'll have solid agenda here. We've got some boot camps on the Monday for those coming in early. And then we've got, obviously, keynotes and breakout sessions, different tracks available, depending on kind of what flavor you want to go with. And then obviously, some exciting, opportunities to mingle as well as entertainment. So not a bad place. Hopefully the weather cooperates. We'll have good weather as well. So
It all seems to be lining up perfectly. We just got to get more people there, and
yeah.
more people, more fun, more interaction.
Yeah,
So,
and I'm glad about this topic because coming off of HIMSS a couple weeks ago, this is as well as some other things going on in the industry. We got some really good stuff to talk about today.
so the title of it, written by Ken Millard, February 26, 2024, is 10+1 Compelling Reasons Why IGEL is Your Ultimate Endpoint Security Solution. Chris, I think you kind of alluded to it just now, but what's the reason why you chose this blog to talk about today?
Um, well, really what's in the title there, security. I mean, I came to IGEL and went into a space where that was the first thing that got looked at with a product that was unknown to a specific market. Turns out that our posture there already years ago was built from the ground up to be very, very secure. And then obviously some market factors occur that kind of brings this solution to the top, along with just other things, people recognizing it and wanting to partner with you. And so the timeliness was actually pretty good because we had rebranded, new logo, new focus messaging, starting off the gate as with security, number one, foundationally, putting us on the endpoint, and with that there, you can build on top of that with all types of things in user computing related. And so that's why I want to talk about it, because it reminds me of Spinal Tap, right? That going to 11, 10 plus 1. So that's for those that might remember what that reference is about. But great clip on YouTube if you need to look it up. So
I need to look it up. Aaron, before we jump in, this topic resonates really well with your thoughts, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I'll tell you, Andy, my throughout my military career and since I've been here, I try to focus on the data. If we secure the data, we don't have to worry about everything else. And so IGEL is that perfect solution. It focuses on the data. So now we don't have to look at the data on the endpoint. We can look at the data in the transport and storage. So it significantly reduces the attack surface that we have. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going at is, hey, focus on the data, and IGEL does that. It's a great solution.
yeah, that's a great point, because I said I started off my career as a federal contractor, defense. We had several defense contracts, and I worked my way into the security piece there as the security officer for our regular DoD and then our SCI stuff, right? So top of mind, operational security, physical security, and then we got into the world of IT as that computing began. We didn't have networking back then. This is like mid 90s, by the way, pre-internet growth, but that became a thing. We did start doing classified processing, and I had to concern myself with data on the endpoint, right, and processing that correctly. And the thing that stood, is obviously clear about IGEL, there is no data on the endpoint. There's a configuration of the device, but there's no data. You're not saving PDFs and Word docs and other stuff that might get picked up and taken to the, somebody's laptop gets stolen or whatever. There's data on the endpoint you got to be concerned about.
How about this? How about you
Mhm.
protect the data and mitigate the execution to whatever degree is appropriate, and you take those two things, apply them together, and now you've got your security strategy.
Yeah, and what stood out to me is you get customer stories that come in, where they are dealing with a breach or something is going on, and the IGEL endpoints have not been taken down. The other endpoints that are not running IGEL, typically Windows. Sorry, guys, it is what it is. Those devices are not usable, and they have to, bring in the National Guard, re-image those things or whatever, whereas the IGELs are continually up and running.
Yeah.
And can be configured to pivot to a backup site if you need to go that route too, in a moment's notice. So there's a lot of compelling reasons why, and I threw that word out there because it's in the title, compelling reasons why IGEL is your ultimate endpoint security solution. Thank you, Ken Millard, for teeing that up for me.
So, Chris, I may know exactly the scenario you're talking about, but National Guard comes in and says, do more of that.
Right.
Deliver it with Citrix, deliver it with VMware, deliver it with Parallels, deliver it with Azure, however you want to do it, and then execute it from IGEL devices. Do more of that, see how that's sustained or withstood what just happened. And then that very same account that I think you might be referring to turned around and went and deployed more Windows after all that happened, because they just didn't learn the lesson. And then it happened again. Crazy scenarios.
Yeah, I don't know specifically. I do know that there was a person there that came to work for left that world and is very much a huge advocate of IGEL, and kind of leading us into our first top bullet point on this article.
Before you do that, I want to talk about some. It says, in today's evolving threat landscape, ensuring the security of endpoints and cloud workspaces is not just essential, but strategic imperative for enterprises. Enter IGEL, the epitome. What is that word?
Epitome.
Epitome Oh, wow. I don't think I've ever seen that word written out. Comprehensive preventative endpoint security. Here are 10 plus one compelling reasons why IGEL stands tall as the ultimate choice for securing your endpoints across VMware, Citrix VDI, Azure Virtual Desktop, Parallels, and others. And I'm going to add one more to there that is not here, which I think is extremely important, SaaS, right? If you're just accessing SaaS apps with a browser, whether it's Island, whether it's Chrome, whether it's Chromium, whether it's Edge, whether it's Firefox, Mozilla, IGEL mitigates that attack surface at the edge. VDI, published apps, SaaS, all the above. And then all these topics we're going to cover align. My point in all that is you got to have some kind of strategy towards getting the app to it, presented to it, browser, workspace app, whatever the endpoint is, or whatever the app delivery is. But once you have that figured out, that plus this secure endpoint, now we're cooking, and we've got a very immutable and probably preventable security strategy. Chris, the first one, proactive prevention. Hit that one.
Yeah, so kind of alluded to earlier, from the ground up, IGEL was built, and I mentioned this last week at the security blueprint lunch, built from the ground up to be in a untrusted environment, essentially the internet, right? So read-only focus, managed endpoint, very similar to kind of we talked about the Island browser, right? A managed browser, right? Not just a free and open browser that you can customize and do what you want with necessarily, but a preventative model designed to thwart at the foundational level the typical attack vectors or whatever it might be that somebody's trying to get to compromise that device. And so that's the foundational element. You put IGEL on that device and you're already in a much better posture. It also, we talk about the reactive nature, right? And yes, we have a great story where you can respond in a moment's notice with the IGEL UD Pocket, for example, but it's just better if you have IGEL already on the device to begin with. You don't need a lot of the other protective measures that are often there, like disk encryption or pre-boot auth or those malware prevention or responsive type things. All that is already kind of there because the data is not on the device. Now we can go the routes of putting in disk encryption and stuff if you need it, but that's more of a it's kind of like putting ice cream on top of your pie, right? The pie's already great by itself, then you throw in the a la mode piece, just because, but you don't necessarily need it all the time. So, but yeah, just that foundational layer, start there. It's a proactive approach versus that reactive model.
Aaron, thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the perfect way to approach it. We spend a lot of time in fixing problems and trying to identify problems that in this case won't be there. So we save time, we save effort, we save money, and we can focus on other things.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to also mention, we've talked a lot about on this podcast, just the end user experience, right? A lot has occurred in the worlds that we've lived in with these VDI solutions or other ones to make it a great user experience, so that if you want it to be just like it's installed, VDI's come a long way. AVD, Citrix, all those things, the networking, the functionality, the features, it can feel like it's installed locally over a variety of different types of network connections. So I think that's also accelerated. Plus, if you take in a browser experience, right? Microsoft's poured a ton of money into Edge to make it a great user experience with their cloud apps and everything. I would say it's not feature to feature with the natively installed apps, but there's a lot of stuff you can functionally do with the Office suite or Teams or whatever. I mean, it's you don't need some of that stuff that we've talked about before coming from a Windows OS all the time.
Yeah.
And if the user experience is great, do you need that Windows device on the endpoint? If they're getting their job done. So
Chris, the next one is seamless cloud migration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So obviously, we're in a place where a lot of customers are still dealing with on-prem environments, but maybe migrating either purposely or more focused because they have to respond to something that occurred and they have to rapidly accelerate that adoption. But they have options, right? They're not tied to one particular cloud. We support multiple cloud environments, whether that's through the Microsoft or Amazon or even potentially Google. But should something happen and a customer needs to pivot, with IGEL on the endpoint, they can quickly do that, and allowing them to, not just support their existing on-prem, but the stuff they're moving to the cloud rather quickly.
Yeah, and a lot of companies these days are really focused on continuity of business, right? In the military, we'd call that continuity of operations. But this is a perfect example of how you build a continuity of business plan so that you can continue operations throughout without having long pauses or downtime, as you can just here seamlessly migrate.
Yeah, well, there's an example that came up. It was actually the Navy that recently adopted massively in about a week. They went from 25,000 AVD users to over 100,000 users. And the reason is because on the endpoint, the VPN product they were using, which I think most people know what it is at this point, but it got compromised. And, they were able to, the cloud offers that ability to scale rapidly. And that's exactly what they did. I wish it was an IGEL customer that we could say, awesome, but we're working our way there, but that just shows the power of being able to migrate, whether it's over time or immediately because something happened that you need to take into account and quickly respond.
You guys may have seen me on the video. I had to make a phone call. My alarm system was going off. It must have known we were talking about security. Got some
No.
doing some work. Number 3, ransomware resilience.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier. Obviously, what's interesting, I'm learning more about some of these things. They're not coming in day zero necessarily. They're already in the network for months at a time, and then they choose to, be ready to pull the trigger when they want. And oftentimes they're getting their, pieces in place there. So when they're ready to lock a device down or trigger it based on some user's action, a lot of the attack vector is targeting the endpoint. And one of the things that obviously IGEL is designed to prevent is, users from being able to modify the operating system, anything like that. And so it's very much resilient to those types of things. And as I've mentioned earlier, we've had customers where they were either hit already and the IGEL devices were fine, or they were responding rapidly to deploy the UD Pocket to devices because they saw a wave coming and they had to get those devices locked down. So that's what we're referring to in that bullet point 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the endpoint's a great place to hide, right? If you need to start something, leave it there and wait until you can, get the environment the way you want to carry out whatever attack you need, right? So great place to hide. This gives them one less place to hide. Again, we're reducing that overall attack vector and saving time in where we have to go to find any type of a breach.
The bad guys have been hiding in the bushes forever. What happened, in my opinion, over the last 5 years or so is we now had digital currency. So they came out of the bushes and attacked. Now they had a way to get paid. So a lot of times you just follow the money and you'll find out where the real issue is. But I'll go to number 4 here. Aaron, this one you mentioned earlier, so I'll let you talk about it. And that is data security assurance. Yeah,
so again, I'll go back to what matters is the data, right? We talk about CIA. When we talk about CIA, we talk about data. Now, you could say A depends on the network. Well, yes, in our case, but if we had the data we needed without having a network, we would never need a network. So we spend a lot of time focusing on protecting the environment that data resides in, which is very costly, instead of focusing on protecting the data and the data itself. And so again, this is a great solution that focuses on just the data and having the CIA you need for that data.
Yeah. And that's not the agency, obviously, for those that are CISSPs out there, but confidentiality, integrity. I'm sorry, now I forgot the last one.
Availability.
Thank you. Availability. That's really the thing. There's no data. It kind of going back to that centralized computing back into the AS400 IBM early days, right? That era. We're back to that. Data needs to reside in a place where it can be locked down and secured.
Yeah. So I'm gonna hit on number 5 because it's easy. It ain't Windows. Number 5 is attack surface reduction, aka it ain't Windows. Therefore, the power of Windows gets mitigated, and you only use what you need to goes back to this whole idea that the edge has been where all the bad stuff can, not all the bad stuff, a big chunk of the bad stuff can come from. And as Aaron pointed out, things have been hiding there for a long time. If we can mitigate that,
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it. IGEL being a Linux operating system, that's one check. IGEL being read-only, that's another check. And then number 6, effortless updates. Chris, you want to handle that one?
Yeah. As I go to 6, the last point is reduce ports, open ports. You know, when you're scanning devices or whatever like that, searching and seeking what's out there, IGEL is a very light posture, and plus being modular, which we'll talk about here in a second. We can take things off the device if you don't need them. So on the updates, that architecture, right? Even from our earlier days, we've gone from everything's in the firmware to include all the clients and updates and browsers and stuff that you would need. You can remove some of those in the prior firmware OS 11 and 10 days. Now going forward with 12, it's very similar to your mobile phone. You've got a base OS, and then you bring in the applications that you need, and the ones that you don't need, you just don't have them installed. Or if they are installed, they're just not configured to be used, and you lock down the device so they can't be enabled or configured right. So yeah, that modular architecture approach. And then what's also happened is we've broken it out so that if we have an update for Chromium or the AVD client or whatever it might be, those are separately updated from the operating system, whereas everything used to be updated all at once, which was still efficient because it wasn't a ton, but now we've kind of broken that out, those seamless updates. And yeah.
And Chris, this is probably an area I'm less familiar with, but so I would say that there's also a lot of standardization across your environment, right? Because if all of your endpoints have IGEL OS, well, that OS is the same across. So your update should be the same across. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, it's a good point. So a couple weeks ago, we were doing, getting some demos, and we came across we needed to standardize on a particular version of the OS because of a networking thing, whatever it was. And so we pushed that out to all the devices, make sure they had it. And that was our standard across, we had multiple booths where we were all using the same demo system essentially. And then we added in during the course of the show, because of conversations, we added in a couple other applications that we wanted to showcase. That weren't in the original plan, but it was easy to do because we were that modular approach. Pull it in, here it is, talk about it, so.
Right.
Let's see. Next one is BYOD and WFH, work from home. So bring your own device and work from home confidence.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So last week at this security blueprint lunch, one of the guys in the audience, they were, if I'm not mistaken, Aaron, they said they bought like 11 companies in like 6 months or
18.
18 is crazy. And they kind of went from, lots of offices, the typical brick and mortar, to work from home kind of thing. And they went and did a BYOD approach. And they'd never heard of IGEL. And I just kind of brought it up that, you really should consider that because, and obviously I showcased the IGEL UD Pocket as as long as it's an x86 64-bit device, and you can, have them give them a couple different options or choose a vendor that has different options that we already work with or whatever, and just plug that in. You don't have to worry about the managing the endpoint device and putting software on there that you may need them to use in order to access data, right? You don't have to worry about it. There's a lot of solutions out there. Aaron had a slide that had like 100,000 different security vendors. It was crazy. It was an eye chart. And they all kind of solve for different things. But yeah, with this, I mean, it's very seamless. Pop in the UD Pocket, take that device, leverage the hardware, but not the OS on the hard drive, and then use it, and you're not compromising security at all.
Aaron, BYOD and work from home thoughts?
Yeah, I think IGEL is a great solution for being able to address your work environment in as flexible a manner as possible. Between the OS that you can deploy and the UD pockets that you can take anywhere. Great flexible solution to address the growing challenge of how our workspace is becoming.
Yeah. Next one, Chris, number 8, integrated security.
Yeah, so this is kind of, I think, alluding to the fact that, again, just from our design, read-only secure boot, working our way up through what's called the or just the chain of trust. A lot of things are often added in a non-Windows, I'm sorry, Windows endpoint. These additional add-ons just to make sure that the security is there. And a lot of those things are just not needed because of the way we've designed the product from the get-go. And it's not something new we came across. Like and I've talked about this a lot before. Like security became a thing for Microsoft. Not it was the thing. It was definitely not by design. And the early years of the viruses and stuff like that took advantage of that when the internet became a thing.
My favorite story to talk about that is when Windows 10 came out and Candy Crush was included by default. I couldn't believe it.
Exactly. Right. Probably TikTok too. Who knows? So sorry.
Let's see. So we haven't talked about it in this, but look, there is the ability, this comes up occasionally, where if you still need antivirus, if you still need security management tools, those can be added. They can be made IGEL ready based on the fact that IGEL is really just Linux. There's a process for doing that if
Yeah.
an organization needs it. And my answer to that question is, do I need antivirus? And my answer always is, go ask your CISO. If he says yes, then the answer is yes. If he says no, then he obviously understands what this is all about and says no.
Yeah, and actually, number 8 really kind of ties to the conference that and our brand disrupt, right? It really is about disrupting the status quo, the thinking, and people are used to just I have to have those things on the endpoint. And if they really do, we do have whether it's an IGEL custom partition or even going forward the new App Store, App Portal. There are some really cool security solutions out there, a Zscaler and a ZTA kind of thing, or CrowdStrike. I'll use one of those, right? They may not be able to mitigate anything on the IGEL device, but if it's just a matter of I need to have that on there so I have visibility in my CrowdStrike dashboard or something, right? Already knowing that those devices are locked down anyway, those things can occur and do. But the reality is the antivirus or like that, there's no mitigation to occur. There's a great blog out there. I'll point it to you later. One of our engineers, went in and literally in the IGEL command line, went in and tried to mess around with the operating system and get it to break. He just rebooted and it restored itself. It's really that simple. That's what we're designed to do. So even if something were to get in there, which would be very difficult to do if it wasn't already locked down, it's going to restore itself when it reboots. That's just how we are.
So guys, I'm going to tackle number 9, simplified management. And I'm going to tackle it because I did 2 tours of duty at Microsoft doing directory services, aka Active Directory support. And I would literally have customers, medium size and larger customers, call in, and it would take me 30 minutes to an hour just to whiteboard out all the domain controllers that they had in their environment and what their domain even looked like before we could even begin to troubleshoot it. And then we're talking about, GP updates and GP update force, and we're looking at all kinds of, whether it was group policy settings or whether it was Active Directory settings. It takes both to make Active Directory work. I know that Microsoft at this point knows they've got a big mess on their hands. It was a way to do it at the time, but that's the Active Directory world is it needs to be fixed. And I know they're working on it. But Universal Management Suite is usually a server or 2 servers that manage the entire environment. It may get help from buddy updates, maybe not, but probably not, especially in today's world. IGEL just simplifies and flattens the management of the solution. And if you need something to get pushed out, chances are you make the setting, you do the push, or you wait for the check-in, and within a matter of 30 seconds or so, it has started the process, and you can see it happening if you have the visual representation turned on. It is just a much, much more efficient way to manage endpoints in the IGEL world. Chris, any additional comments to that?
Yeah, in fact, just last week, after I presented, I had to go back to this customer meeting. The team that's managing the devices, they've fallen in love with the UMS mainly because they had previously been managing Windows devices, and to your point, all the different things that they've needed to do, be able to make updates or push out or schedule things or whatever. Whereas what they've come to learn is that IGEL is much more efficient in that process, and it doesn't take an army of people to do it. You got that centralized control. You can schedule updates. You can push them out immediately. And this is often, when in a healthcare setting, you may have to make a change on the fly because of something going on at a clinic or in the hospital, and they have that ability to rapidly respond if something were to occur, and try to keep the environment up and running, and but I'd love to have a session at Disrupt where we hear from folks that are managing IGEL, and this is the thing that caught my eye when I first came to IGEL or was looking at IGEL. This tool alone,
Yeah. The only thing I would add to this is the fact that IGEL is investing in making this, web enabled, web look and feel, web delivered. So it's only going to get better. Aaron, from a security perspective, simplified management has to mean a better, more likely opportunity to have a secure environment.
Yeah, I mean, the big buzzword in industry and the government today is single pane of glass. Everybody's trying to achieve that utopia of a single pane of glass, and with this, obviously it's and with this and the standardization we were talking about earlier, it makes just the overall management of IGEL OS very simple as long as that's what's on your endpoints. And so from a security perspective, if I can see everything in one picture, then I have a much better idea of what I have to secure, what I have to protect. And so anything in your environment, I don't think we're going to get away from having some endpoints that are not an IGEL OS. So then you can look at all the rest of your environment and then take this part of your environment, put it into one picture, and understand better how your environment is protected.
Yeah. So guys, I'm going to take the last one before we get to the plus one, and that's the tech ecosystem. Look, everything we've talked about here, you could kind of do with Windows, but you can't because it's just evolved to the point where it's just out of control, and there's no putting a tiger back in the cage. You could do it with others potentially, but the thing you can't get that IGEL has going on, and that is buy-in from the tech community, the end user community, the partners out there. That is where IGEL sets itself apart by far, whether it's security solutions, VDI, authentication mechanisms, you name it. It's a community of people that IGEL has built that has set it apart from the other thin client vendors, as well as from even Windows as far as adoption. Chris, how important is the community to what IGEL is doing?
I mean, we couldn't do without it. I mean, we are a solution sale. We functionally have to interoperate and integrate with these other solutions that are in the environments. And what's exciting to see is when a net new thing becomes of interest for customers or whatever, and there's opportunity to integrate and bring to market some of these newer things, right? So I, for this podcast, one of our great partners is EPOS. I love their headsets. I use them all the time. I carry them with me on a plane or whatever. They're just great, and they just seamlessly work. They have a great story where you can update the firmware or whatever on their devices, similar to how we do our updates. This is just one of many integrations, right? You want that plug and play experience. And obviously what's also good is a lot of these folks will find out there's joint product roadmaps, right? Bringing to market, solutions, updates together. And a lot of that is based on customer demand or market opportunities. And so it's a huge thing. You have to be able to have those partnerships and integrations. And I think our IGEL Ready program is pretty top notch there.
Aaron, you're slightly new to this industry. You've been here about a year now. Ecosystem matters from your perspective?
Absolutely. Ecosystem integration matters. And this is a great point when we bring in XenTegra, right? Because we have IGEL experts, we have VMware experts, we have VDI experts, we have experts across the board on all these technologies. So not only is it a great story to have that integration, but it's a great story that XenTegra can be the one to help integrate all of this for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that because I was sitting there looking at obviously the key partners that you guys are focused on in the practices and stuff like that, and it kind of struck me as a vendor, we're often focusing just on our product, but in my role, I get a chance to see what other solutions are out there where we are doing integrating with, and also some of the net new things that are emerging. And it's exciting to kind of see how Andy, kind of you structured your team to take advantage of those. If you not only that, but you guys vet those solutions too. which is exciting, right? It's, if you're going to promote it, you got to stand behind it. And in a lot of cases, you guys are already using it, which is great to see.
Yeah. All right. Last one is the plus one, the sustainability. Microsoft has cut us on this addictive wave of every 3 to 5 years at the most. We've got to go out and buy a new laptop because things have gotten more difficult to process. The performance is needed, or, which is highly likely, your computer's gotten so junked up with stuff that it just can't keep going from your perspective, whether it's your corporate environment or your personal environment. The truth is that's not the truth. And if we could use something more efficient, like a Linux-based operating system like IGEL, all of a sudden we can keep laptops and computers in production much, much longer.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting here looking at notes from a meeting we had a couple weeks ago. Even if it isn't running Windows, that they've got some Dell devices, 700 of them that can't go to the next version of Dell Thin OS. These are 10-year-old thin clients. IGEL can get installed on them just fine. Now, we may not be able to do a ton because our hardware is so old, but they could potentially be used for dashboards or some other, low end type thing, maybe just a browser or whatever, potentially, maybe patient registration kiosk, right? You don't need a powerful device for something like that. But those devices are not heading to the dumpster, right? So there's a lot. I mean, that's 10-year-old devices, Andy. I've got a laptop that's 12 years old that runs just fine. It's a Core i3 with
What you meant by can't do everything, you're talking about offloading and things like that. But as far as just task worker type stuff, accessing a virtual desktop or something, it could work just fine. I've got a dumpster literally right outside my window here, and it's been a while. But at one point, I'd go out there often and find 2 or 3 computers in it every single time.
Yeah. So IGEL has a tremendous story there, even for devices that have not gone to the dumpster but have been repurposed with IGEL. What's come out of that is because we're not hitting the hard drive as much, they actually increase the length, especially using battery on the device or whatever. It's like a roaming card or just a laptop or something. That they've often seen an extended life on the battery itself. So it's a strong story there with regards to IGEL and our sustainability efforts.
Yeah. Aaron,
whether your goal is sustainability or saving the environment, or if it's reduction in costs and increase in profits, I mean, you've got it all here, right? We're saving energy, we're saving landfill space, we are increasing or decreasing costs by prolonging the life of this stuff. And hey, it costs money to actually, we do ITAD, IT asset and disposition, right? And that costs every year. It's a yearly cost to get rid of stuff. So if I can increase the time or the frequency of how often I've got to do that, aside from just buying the equipment itself, but also the cost of getting rid of it, we save money.
Guys, I think we've covered it. Anything we didn't cover you guys want to bring up?
No, I think we kind of hit it all. And we'll do it again. We got some more topics coming up here and then in the coming weeks. But I would just say, we talked about before, but if you are interested in going to Disrupt, definitely go to the XenTegra website. I believe there's an events page there where you can sign up and get a discount pass. And would love to see you guys there to hear more about what's going on, not just with IGEL, but certainly in the world of our partnerships as well. So,
Aaron, any parting remarks?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for bringing me in. I mean, in XenTegra, we look at IGEL in 2 ways. We look at it as our overall, digital workspace, but we also look at it as part of our security story, right? And so it's great to get to come on and talk about this. I hope to talk about, more IGEL in the future as it relates to security or other. So appreciate it.
Yeah. Happy to have you here. And I'll leave you guys like this. So at XenTegra, little secret in the sausage here. We have IGEL as a product we sell. We've just decided as a company, Chris, to say every IGEL sell can be split between the security department and the digital workspace team. So I have 2 different business units, modern workspace and security. And we've just decided IGEL is too hard to figure out which one it belongs to because it fits in both categories every single time. So we'll just split it every time.
I saw that on the slide last week with Philip's team and Aaron's team. So that's exciting to see. So we look forward to seeing you guys again here in a few weeks. I know we've got some great things in the hopper as well. So look forward to working with you guys on that. I'm actually honestly, Aaron, excited to see some of the other security products that you're looking at. That there might be some use cases we can do with IGEL on those as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of helped pull together the Island IGEL ready story, and just I think last week or the week before, Cato was interested in that, so we started talking with IGEL about, hey, maybe we can do a Cato ready kind of IGEL ready story there. So looking into that, and so absolutely look forward to talking to you more about what we do at XenTegra from a security perspective.
It's
Great.
a holistic approach, and the endpoint's a big part of it. Guys, thanks. We'll see you next time.
Alrighty.